All right, welcome to another episode of Market Money. It's a pleasure to be here with you again. So today we're going to be covering quite a number of topics. Well, 3 topics, as we usually do. And of course, I'm not organized with my slides. So let me just go back out to the start here. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about real estate investment strategies. And this is a continuation, if you were, from last week's episode where we covered REITs. I thought it was good to kind of complete that episode or add some more information to persons who really wanted to understand the real estate investment space. We're going to have a friend of mine, Rory De Silva from Jamvest, to speak about an interesting real estate investing option, one that I'm still trying to wrap my mind around, but he's going to explain it and hopefully we'll be able to understand it together. And then, of course, you'll reach out to Rory if you're interested in that. Then we look at Dolphin Cove. Dolphin Cove recently announced a 60-cent dividend. And I think they're actually on pace to have a higher dividend this year. But let's look at their numbers first, do the stock review, and talk about where we think the company is headed after that. And then we'll close out with an interview with the GM of Blue Power Group Limited. That's Vijay Tolan. And we had a great conversation last week. It is a pre-recorded interview, but one that was quite useful in helping us to understand Blue Power, where they're headed, and to discuss a little bit of their last quarter's outlook. So great conversation as usual, that's in store. So let's get started. The usual disclaimer, of course, but before that, I have to say this episode is actually sponsored by our L.E.A.R.N Investing in the US Markets class. I'm very excited about this one. Persons have been asking us to cover the US markets for a while. We saw companies like NVIDIA do really well. I'm an investor in Microsoft stock that has been doing well, and some other companies that persons have been seeing in the news and not really sure how to take advantage of that opportunity from the Caribbean. So that's what we'll cover in this class. It's a completely free class. You just need to register to be able to get the link to attend. So go to classes.learngrowinvestclub.com and you'll be able to register for this free class, and I hope to see you there. Of course, an invite to join our community groups. We have 3 free community groups that we'd love for you to be a part of. We're on Telegram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And that's where you can connect with us, ask any questions, get links and information to help you grow as an investor. And of course, we welcome anyone to be a part of the Learn, Grow, Invest community. So as I mentioned before, these are the topics we're going to look at today. So I don't need to go into those. I've already mentioned it. And of course, we have to say the disclaimer, and I will say anything that I discuss here is for education purposes only, and you should definitely speak to a licensed financial advisor before you make any investment decision. All right, so let's talk about real estate investment strategies. As I said, this is a continuation of last week's episode where we spoke about REITs. And so this week we're going to talk about just some options now outside of the stock market that you can look at if you want to invest in real estate. So 4 strategies that I thought would be good to consider for the individual investor. So you have the buy and hold strategy. We're going to talk about that. Investment properties, which is what most people may think about when they're investing in real estate. So I'll talk about that, what it means, what are some of the considerations you should have. We're going to talk about the fix and flip investing. This would be a little bit like you may see on HGTVs and those channels in the US. So most persons would know a little bit about that when I talk about it. And then land flipping or development. Most persons might not have thought about some of the things we look at here. So let's start with buy and hold. So buy and hold investing is when you purchase real estate with the intention to hold it for the long term, right? So the main benefit here is capital appreciation and the ability to use that equity that you'll build up over time as capital maybe for other investments. So buy and hold could mean, for example, your primary place of residence. So for example, this home that I'm in right now is an investment property, except I'm living in it. Now, some persons may not see the home that you live in as an investment property, but it is an asset that's appreciating in value, and so it certainly has to be included. And of course, there are some persons who would have their home as in their primary residence and another property that, and another section of that same property being used as maybe like a 1-room or a 2-room to rent out that section. Of course, you can include that as well. But the primary thing here is that you're focusing on capital appreciation, and of course, you'll be able to benefit from the equity that you'll build up in the property as you hold it for the long term. Next, we have investment properties. Again, I believe this is the one that most people may go to when they think about investing in real estate. This is where you buy a house, apartment, maybe a multi-home property. So maybe a 6-bedroom that you can split into maybe 3 2-bedrooms, or maybe you have multi-homes on the same property, anything of that nature. And it's with the intent of getting rental income from either short-term rentals, Airbnbs. It could be that you're planning to do long-term leases, and I say long-term like 12 months, 24 months, etc. And the aim here is cash flow generation, right? And this is usually to supplement your primary income. Now, what you have to bear in mind with these kind of situations, of course, if it is a single house, think about all the things that may come with buying a home. Now, we actually had a video where we covered buying a home and the total cost of home ownership. We have that video here on this channel, so be sure to check that out. You'll have to consider things like your deposits, closing costs, surveyor costs, valuation, etc. And the state of the home is going to be important, right? Is it a brand new home? Is it something that you're going to have to do some repairs on? I know what my wife would normally ask me, is the home living ready, right? Because you may not want to have to spend any money before you start getting that additional cash flow. If it's an apartment, newer apartments tend to be better, but of course, the mortgage may be high, especially with interest rates being at a high right now. And then of course, persons would usually use apartments for things like Airbnb and other opportunities in terms of rentals, right? So that's the investment property. Next, we have fix and flip. Now, this is kind of exactly as it sounds, where I find that this may be best suited for persons who are either in the real estate industry or have, relationships with contractors and people who can do work on time and within budget, because the thought of doing this as an individual who has had bad experiences with persons to do repairs on time and within budget, I may get frustrated with this. But of course, for somebody who has maybe the network, the understanding of, the types of, repairs that may be needed, this may be a great opportunity for you. So you're going in, buying either a distressed property or something that is in a state where you see that if you renovate it or maybe make some modifications, you'll be able to, in a short while, sell it at a higher price. So the steps, you acquire it, you renovate it, and then you sell. And then buying land, something that I've actually met someone, I've known him for a few years, and what he does is he calls it land banking. So as he gets some extra money, he's purchasing land. And one of the things I said to him is that you have this land, maybe you should look to do other things with it. So when you own land, you have a few things that you can do with it. Of course, you can buy it, hold it, wait for it to appreciate, or you can, group up with some friends and purchase an even larger plot of land and then subdivide those into smaller units. Maybe you make apartments with those, maybe you do other things with it. But you have a lot of flexibility depending on the size of the land. And then of course, I also see and think about opportunities where you may want to use that land for maybe rental of events or other things that may be applicable, of course, within the permissions of where that land is located or anything of the sort, right? So those are the 4, real estate investing options. So what I wanted to do here is bring on Rory, because Rory has a 5th option that I thought it would be interesting after I had a conversation with him. So please join me in welcoming Rory Da Silva. Rory, how are you doing?
Hey, Jermaine, doing good, doing good. Thanks for having me.
All right, so please take a minute and just introduce yourself and JamVest and what you do, then we'll get into our discussion.
Yeah, so JamVest, we are a real estate investment company based here in Kingston. I've worked in the real estate space for a few years in Canada and the US and recently returned to open an office here. So yeah, real estate is a passion of mine. It's pretty much an obsession at this point. So I'm excited to share different tips and tricks as to how people can get started in real estate investing.
All right, cool. So what did you think of my four strategies there? Because as I was going through it, I'm like, well, knowing Rory's gonna be like, well, Jermaine, he said that wrong. He shouldn't have said that. And so first your comments on my 4 tips, and then you can share the one that you think would be a good opportunity for persons, or the 5th one rather, that could be added to that list.
No, good job. Good job recapping the 4. Both, they're all 4 good strategies, right? And the way I think viewers should think about real estate investing is just like the stock market, where there are different strategies depending on what your objectives are. So you have your buy and hold investment strategies where it's long term, or you have your day trading where it's a bit more aggressive. Similar situation for real estate. So one of the more aggressive options would be real estate wholesaling, right? So this is a strategy that our core business is real estate wholesaling, and we do this in the US while being here in Jamaica. But since returning home, I've been talking to local professionals in the real estate space to recreate what we're doing, to start doing it here in Jamaica. So from a high level, real estate wholesaling is just the ability to find distressed properties. So what that means is you're contacting homeowners or property owners that have some sort of need to sell this property. And in exchange for you satisfying that need, they will be willing to sell at a discount. So for a quick example, Jermaine, you might have inherited an acre of land and you say, you don't want to pay the taxes or have to deal with the land. So you reach out to me and you say, hey, Rory, I just want a cash offer for this land. The land might be worth $1 million. And he said, just for a cash, easy transaction, I'll be willing to sell it to you for 800,000, right? Now I can turn around and sell this to an investor who might look at that same plot of land, and for whatever reason, maybe they're a developer, they might be willing to pay, 1.1 or even $1 million, right? So now I'm basically simultaneously agreeing with you to pay you 800,000 for the land, turning around and selling that back to a developer at the $1 million price point, and just pocketing that $200,000 spread. So that's, in a high-level summary, what real estate wholesaling is about.
So the very first question that comes to mind when you say that, 1, I'd need the relationship with the developer.
Yeah.
And 2, I'd need to scope out the opportunities to act. Because if it's not my land, then I'd probably need to look and find land, convince that owner. So it kind of feels like maybe, is it something the average person can do, or that's where they need to partner with you to make it a reality?
Yeah, to be honest, there are resources online that people could research and do it on their own. I'm a big believer in partnerships and just having teammates. Like, real estate is a team sport. So it's definitely something good to have people around you who are doing similar strategies so you can learn from each other. So the first point where you mentioned having to know the developer, the cheat code to that, I would say, is speaking to agents, right? So you have agents who actually focus on investors, right? They have a Rolodex of developers or cash buyers, people who just want to park money. So the more conversations you have with agents is the higher your chance of finding that right one. So the 2 key people in this transaction or this strategy, a good real estate agent that works with investors, as well as a real estate attorney who knows the proper paperwork that you need to have in place to protect your interests. Because again, Jermaine, you and I agree at that $800,000 price point. We need to make sure we have a contract in place that protects my interests, and so that the developer who is coming to buy it, they can't circumvent me or go directly to you to offer you that price.
So I mean, that sounds to me like, so if I wanted to get involved in something like that, I would engage someone like you. How do persons reach out to do business with you? How would that work?
Yeah, sure. So I'm active on Instagram. So the handle is at Jamvestor, Jamvestor, or by email, rory@jamvest.com. And yeah, we're making very good connections right now to again bring the awareness and the education to implement some of these strategies here locally. So being able to tap into our real estate attorney or agents that we've already shortlisted who work with investors would be valuable. So the only thing someone looking to get started would be responsible for is really marketing and finding those types of leads. And there are ways that you can go about doing that as well in a very cost-effective manner.
Okay, sounds good. So the final thing I'll ask you, I'm running debate in our group, and I had to put you on the spot here. So for everyone's benefit here, Rory and I are in a group, and the discussion was raised, stocks versus real estate. So Rory, I'll allow you to share your piece, and I'll share mine. So my take was that, stocks are lower barrier of entry, easier to get started, and the return potential is greater than that of real estate. So Rory, I'll allow you to share your case, before we end our interview here.
Yeah, so it's definitely been quite a healthy debate. My background actually started out in finance, working as a trader, so very familiar with stocks and the stock market.
Oh,
Have
they
a
probably
good
have
appreciation.
stock market trauma then.
Yeah, no. Things are fine on the stock side, but I just looked at the opportunity cost and I realized I was making a lot more on the real estate side. So I shifted gears there, right? So one of the key things I think that helps is just to understand there's so many different strategies that you can implement with real estate investing. So it's just bringing the awareness, right? So in that example, wholesaling, you could put up a sign, right? Just saying, we buy houses cash. Someone could call you and all of a sudden that's a deal that you can then sell to a developer for a $200,000-$300,000 profit, right? So your cost or investment would really just be the cost to put that sign up and get your permissions from parish council. So I like the reason why I gravitate so much towards real estate is because I see the opportunities for people, everyday people, to just get involved and really expedite their wealth or their income earning potential. And then they can also reposition that wealth into stocks, and get that appreciation as well. So not saying stocks are bad, but there's a way to balance it too, for sure.
Okay, the debate continues. So
the debate continues.
Thanks again, Rory. Really do appreciate it. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Rory. You can find him on Instagram and TikTok, and I'll leave his information in the description. And I believe you said, Rory, you may be able to hang out in the chat for a little bit just in case persons have questions, right? All right, awesome.
Yeah, I'll hop into that.
All right, thank you. All right, so hopefully you got some new perspectives in terms of real estate investing. That real estate wholesaling, Rory has explained it to me 3 times. I think I now understand it. And so let me know if you're interested in that. Let me know in the comments if that's something you think you may be interested in. As I mentioned, for me, I see where those 2 things that I mentioned would be the areas that I would have concerns with. But of course, if you have the right network, if you have the right strategy, and of course, once you get informed, then it's something that may be a great opportunity for you. So let's continue with our episode here and look at Dolphin Cove. So Dolphin Cove closed today at $19.30, up 51 cents from yesterday, or 2.71%. So let's talk about Dolphin Cove a little bit. So if you've never been to Dolphin Cove, think of it as a marine and adventure park. So there are rides, there are different attractions, etc., for you to be able to take advantage of. So it's positioned as a tourist attraction or something that locals can always go to enjoy. So whether it's a special occasion, anniversary, etc., and of course all the other things that you'd expect to come with the park is there. So there are restaurants, gift shops, photography. So as you go through the park, as so for example, one of their attraction is swimming with the dolphins. You'll be able to get photographs of that. So they'll usually take all the photos for the day for all of your activities, and then you can go and purchase from the Photoshop before you leave, etc. So these are all the ways in which you're able to generate revenues. And it's a really simple business to understand once you just think about the things that we just mentioned here. So they have 5 locations in total, and of course you can find out more information on their website. So they're at Montego Bay, Puerto Seco, and then you see 3 locations within Ocho Rios. They came to market making 80 million shares available at an invitation price of $3 per share. So of course that would be significant growth from IPO to where it's at today, $19.30 as I mentioned, and all-time high price I believe is somewhere around $30. And let's actually have a look at that right now. So I'm using a platform called Ticker here. We just maximize that screen. So if we look at the last 12 months, it's up 23% in the last 12 months. We actually go full screen there. If you go back 3 years, it's up 134% in the last 3 years. And I believe it was in 2022. Yes, it went to a high of, I believe, at least $31 or $32. But of course, the price close for this day was $29.45. But I remember when it was making this run up, and interestingly, of course, he had talks about it going further, and it has had a correction since back to around $13.10, and now, as at today, trading closer to $20. And so it's down 33% from all-time highs, but still, trading well in terms of considering where it was at IPO. In the last 5 years, it's up 35%. And so I think it's one of those companies that it's an interesting option, certainly as it relates to dividends. And so it's one of them that is certainly, well, I think based on where they are, how much profitability they have compared to last year, the fact that they have an interim dividend announced now that is higher than the same time last year. Well, let me not give it away. Let's finish going through the results first, and then we'll talk about that a little bit later. So in terms of their profit and loss, revenues are up 18% to $13.2 million US. Operating expenses increased by 17%, so it went to $7 million. Profit before taxes and net profits both increased by 12 and 24%, and so their net profits stand at $3.6 million US. That's certainly a significant amount. And then their earnings per share grew 24, and this figure is in US dollars, so that's 0.0094 US. And their stock price is up 9.6% from the start of this year. So great performance in terms of where they were at the same period last year. And then, of course, when we look at the balance sheet, we see where they have 35 million US in assets that actually grew 5% for the 9 months. Their equity grew by 6% to 34.6 million US. So if you look at that difference between total assets and equity, that leaves very little in terms of liabilities. Their liabilities did not move at all, so it stands at 5.3 million US. And so, their balance sheet is in good shape. There was no long-term debt there, and so, the number of shares outstanding, again, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, so let me save that a little bit for later. Cash flow from operations, a positive $3 million. That's pretty good. It did decrease though, 23% from 3.9 million US. Cash flow from investing activities decreased to $1.9 million. And cash flow from financing activities stood at $1 million US. In terms of trading, it traded between 1880 and 1940 today. and the closing price would have been $19.30. In the last 52 weeks, it's traded between $13 and $20. So if you were able to for example, purchase at the low at $13, you'd actually be up about 20-25% to this point. Market cap stands at $7.5 billion and 392 million shares outstanding. Actually, I think this is one of those companies that, based on the volume it trades, could actually benefit from actually a stock split, because the top 10 holds 95% of shares, right? So, and if you look at the top 10, I don't think that's going to change much in terms of the position in shares. And if you watch just maybe the last 3 months of trading, very, very little volumes. Last year there was I think a few million units traded, and that was about it. So very small volumes trade daily. So I actually think there's an opportunity for this stock to split at some point that would increase trading, increase liquidity for the stock. And of course, they do pay a healthy dividend currently, and that's what we're going to look at now. So they pay dividends of $1.60 for 2023, and they announced it three different times, so three dividends throughout the year. I believe 40 cents, 40 cents, and 60. No, 40, 40, and 80. That would be 160. And their first interim dividend for 2024 was 60 cents, which would be higher than their first dividend paid last year of 40 cents. So I do think with just the fact that they are very well low debt, low or no debt, and the fact that they've had revenues increasing, profits increasing, it's very likely to see a higher dividend this year. Of course, we'll see. Dividends aren't guaranteed. It depends on what the company intends to do with that cash. And so, it would be great to see how things progress. And I do think that there are some opportunities there. I've always wanted to see this company maybe look at, attractions maybe in the Caribbean, partnerships where they may be able to, either include other services, other attractions, etc. And it's something that I think is just a very simple business model, one that has, the opportunity to grow. You look at, for example, things like the number of tourists that have visited the country since it started here. I believe that is up for the first 3 months of 2024. That usually bodes well for a company like this, companies like Express Catering, and so on. So this is certainly one of those stocks that would fall into the ones that would do well if tourism for the country does well. And then, of course, the risks to a company like this would be, I guess, seasons like the hurricane season, or if there's like a pandemic or anything like that, that would present a risk to their business. Outside of that, it's pretty simple and straightforward. So I leave you to decide if that is a company that you're interested in or not. And so let us continue. So next up, we have an interview with VJ Tolan. That's the GM of Blue Power Group Limited. This is a pre-recorded interview. I actually sat down with him last week. We spoke about most of the questions that we went through were centered around the outlook that was shared in their latest financial results. So we spoke about the company, went into the conversation about what's ahead for them. So I hope that you enjoy the interview, and I'll see you back right after. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to be on.
Great. Thank you so much. So let's start with, the most basic question, right? Can you tell us a little bit about Blue Power?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about Blue Power. So we make soap, but there's more to it than that, right? We began a little over 20 years ago. Founder is Dr. Deru Tanner. He actually started the company in the hardware business, and your listeners and yourself will know about Lumber Depot, and then Blue Power was started thereafter. So the group itself encompassed the soap factory and Lumber Depot, A few years ago, Lombard was separated from Blue Power on the stock exchange and is now on their own on the JSE. However, the Blue Power Group has continued as a soap manufacturing company. And what we have been doing for the past 20 plus years is manufacturing across the entire product lines of bar soaps. So we manufacture what we call in Jamaica cake soap, but it's really laundry soap. Everybody knows it as blue soap. We manufacture bath soaps, traditional bath soaps. So we can do from the regular, the Castiles to the antibacterials to the natural soaps. So in essence, we manufacture anything bar soap related, and we do it for our own brands. But importantly, we do it for third-party brands as well. And so we like to classify ourselves because this is what we are, manufacturers. And so companies that have brands within personal care, we seek to partner with them, and we seek to partner with them well by providing them with the private labeling opportunities in the bar soap space.
Great. I love that context. I didn't know you covered all of that. So that means then you're mainly business to business, or I guess let me ask you, what segment of the business is you working with partners to white label and provide those services, and what segment is, or what percentage is focused on maybe?
Right. So the larger percentage of our business, I would say, is probably is white labeling, private labeling, because we do manufacture a lot for partners, and we also, I didn't say this in the beginning, but we also do exports as well. So on our own Blue Power brand, you will find our products in the US, you find it in the UK, and you find it across some Caribbean countries. So historically, we have been an export-driven company as well.
Okay. All right. So with that context of what you've given us in terms of what you do, how do you see your plans and strategy for growth? What is that strategy?
Well, the plan is always to make more soap, right? So, we are and we knocked heads earlier. So we are growing, and a big part of our business is to grow our white labeling partnerships, and say to our customers and say to prospective customers that, listen, we manufacture soaps well, right? We are excellent at this, and we can do your brands for you, and we can be versatile, we can customize, and we can give you the type of quality that you can get anywhere else in the world here at Blue Power. So that's the first thing that we want to do. We want to grow the volumes of our business, not just for our own brand, but really to manufacture as well for other companies that have similar mindsets and want to grow their businesses. In addition, we see the opportunity to expand in the bar soap categories. So I did mention that we can do anything bar soap. And so we want to work with our current partners to expand their lines. And so we're looking at line extensions, line expansions for our current customers and even for our current brands in terms of building the volume. And we want to onboard as many more brands out there that are probably not made in Jamaica right now, but can be made in Jamaica, by again selling to these companies and selling to these potential partners the viability of working with a company like Blue Power. So in the bar soap realm, right, that is a big part of our strategic plan, business development. Additionally, a key component of where we want to be in the future is being a company that is diversified and able to provide solutions across the personal care category, not just in the bar soap space. And so we see ourselves as a company that is well poised to develop within the personal care category beyond the bar soaps. And we are intent on moving into other spaces of personal care, including liquid. and that's something that we're looking at aggressively, and we're seeing how best as a team we can kind of transition into making the most of that type of opportunity, going into the liquid soap space. And so our strategic plans really surround business development, pushing volumes. We have the capacity internally to grow our bar soap volumes, twofold, even threefold, without the addition of much more. We have, I'd say, over the past year and a half, invested in the necessary equipment to pivot us to the next level of business development growth. And so, again, to answer the question, business development, increase volumes, partnering with our current customer base, seeking new potential customers to manufacture for, and going into new product lines within bar soap category, but also outside of the bar soap category with personal care, are key features of our strategic plans.
Okay. So in terms of, say, you alluded to, I guess, a strategy for companies outside of Jamaica to potentially partner with you. What's the next piece of that in terms of your strategy for growth outside of Jamaica?
Right. So that's a very good question as well. So we have recognized that, one, the diaspora is a pretty large market, and we have seen, particularly during the COVID period, where members of the diaspora, and I'll also say even non-Jamaican diaspora, but the Caribbean diaspora, identify with our brands. And so the plan is to develop further in the US market with our partners, the distribution of our brands and our products. Currently, I would say we have a good footprint in South Florida and also the Northeast USA. Through our partners, the intent is to kind of expand the geographical presence of our brands. So that's one. Two, we have partners that are doing pretty well within Jamaica and within the region, and they themselves have identified potential opportunities within North America, and we are working with our potential partners we're working with our current partners to exploit these opportunities. And so what we do very well is making bar soaps, and making bar soaps that resonate very well with our Caribbean people. We also are good at customizing soaps, and what we find is that there are a lot of niche segments that are growing, and we make those soaps pretty well. So we're partnering with our current customers as well to get increased footprint in the US market and in the North American market. So as we seek to build volumes in the local market, we're also looking to increase our footprint in the North American market as well. And as things progress, the ideal is to get back as well into the Caribbean market and get back some sales into our customers on that side of the world.
Okay, thank you for that context. Your Q3 report alluded to business model challenges. Can you tell us a little bit about what those challenges are and what side of the business that would impact?
Right. So the issue that we alluded to really speaks to the exports to CARICOM. And the idea is that products manufactured in Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean that operate, soap manufacturing businesses must pay duty. And so in Jamaica, what we do is we develop and execute on our recipes. So we will add, respective fragrances. We will add, our own colors. We'll add local flavors. And CARICOM has a special rule that says, despite all of that combining and mixing and additions of raw materials that you add in Jamaica, it is technically not manufactured in Jamaica. And that is the problem. And that's a problem that manufacturers within Jamaica and across the Caribbean will face in terms of the business model challenge. And so this problem essentially will result in respective duties being applied. And so the solution for us, which ties back to a strategic plan, is to build more volume here in Jamaica through our factories. And that is why we have such a keen and aggressive approach to business development and volume sales. And that's why we're so keen on partnering and, really executing well with our strategic distribution partners for them to also align with our visions. And I think, from where we sit, it is recognized that this challenge that's being faced within the region is something that, as Jamaicans, we want to tackle. And so we do feel like we will be able to push along with our local partners to increase our volumes and ultimately build on Jamaican manufacturing.
Okay. So your hope is to use volume to overcome that duty cost that will be there.
Most definitely. And, Jermaine, I want to even kind of not use the word hope. We are aggressive on it, and we truly believe in what we're doing. We believe that we have a fantastic plan. We believe that we work very well with our partners, and that what we are planning, right, will be executed, because we firmly will be leading the charge on this. And I think the outlook is bright for us.
All right. So you mentioned a couple of things that I guess paints a picture of your diverse approach to growing the business. Are there any other, product lines or maybe opportunities that you see to diversify the business that maybe I haven't mentioned already?
Yeah, so we have some internal innovations that we're working on. We're about ready to drop it on the market, so we'll tell everybody to look out for it. I think as well, we're a company that is very serious about innovation, and I've spoken a lot about working with our partners and aligned visions, and so we recognize the importance of constantly evolving our own business to ensure that we meet the needs of our customers. And so we will be making necessary investments in even more equipment, so we're able to meet our customers where we need to meet them for them to evolve in the consumer space. So outside of just launching new products, we're looking at how we can help to even renovate current products that we have on the market, not just our own products, but work with our partners to renovate their own products, because that's the type of company we are. We want to innovate, we want to keep evolving, and so yes, you can look out for new things to drop on the market coming out of the Blue Power factory, and it's really it's in our DNA, and we want to continue on that line. I mentioned earlier, and just to touch on that question, when you speak about other lines, we want to become a company that is prominent in the personal care space, and that builds on Jamaican manufacturing in the personal care space. So expanding into the area of liquid soaps and liquid manufacturing on a whole in the personal care category is something that we definitely are keen in looking into. And as the business develops and as opportunities become available, we will be seeking to exploit that.
Okay. I feel like I understand the business so much better now. There was like a final line or two in your outlook that you mentioned, taking advantage of some land that's opposite your current location. What's the timeline for that use of land? Do you know clearly what you're going to be using it for? What can you tell us about that?
Right. So we have next door about 3 acres that we invested in. As we evolve, we recognize that we will need more space to build our business as we speak about things like the liquid line and just simply exploiting opportunities in the personal care space that may come our way. The intent is to utilize the land that we invested in to afford us the abilities to expand our manufacturing capacity and expand our manufacturing, the space for us to onboard new manufacturing equipment, especially as we seek to go into new categories. So the timeline for that, I would say, is not defined as yet. We would love to start engaging in development over on that land for the exploitation of business opportunity within the next 12 months. But again, there's no defined timeline. But it's something that we're working on. And once the time is right, we will be making that move.
Okay. So I'd like to close out this interview with a word from you to shareholders. So you mentioned that separation that you'd have had a few years ago with lumber, and it's what would a shareholder know, what would you give them to hold on to for the future, right? Because you've painted your vision, you've mentioned your strategy for growth. As it relates to now the investment side and your shareholders, what do you say to them as they take this journey with you?
So I would say that this is an exciting time for the Blue Power Group. I spoke about how we see the scope for more soaps in Jamaica, not just in the bar soap realm, but in the liquid soap realm as well, for us to develop in. I've spoken about innovating and evolving our products, not just for our own brands, but also for our private label brands, which we want to and will continue to expand on. We've also touched base on, or we've also spoken about the utilization of land that we've invested in for business growth. And so what I would say is I'm excited about Blue Power, and the team here is very excited about the future because we see so much opportunity for growth in this business, and we are acting actively on exploiting opportunities and exploiting these business development opportunities. And so the journey, I think, over the next 3 to 5 years will be a fun one, and it will be one that will see us growing from end to end. And so that's what I would say to anybody looking on to Blue Power. Look out for us to continue evolving, continue innovating, and ultimately growing our business from both the revenue perspective, the volume perspective, and the onboarding or the extension of the Blue Power manufacturing company, the Blue Power Group, into new lines of businesses.
Yeah. Thank you so much, VJ. It was a pleasure speaking with you. All the best to the Blue Power team.
Thank you for having me, Jermaine, and thank you to your listeners.
All right. Hope you found some value from that interview with VJ. I think it was a good discussion. It helps me to understand just what's happening with Blue Power since that separation. I would have been following it up to that point. I remember that point when the split occurred, and what that meant for both companies, etc. And so again, if you have any questions for VJ or the Blue Power team, let us know in the comments below. So let's do a quick recap of the episode. We spoke about investment strategies for real estate, 4 clear strategies, and then we had a special guest, Rory Da Silva, join us for a 5th one, which was real estate wholesaling. Thought that was an interesting concept. Then we looked at Dolphin Cove, ticker symbol DCOVE. We went through the financials and we saw where there was growth in revenues, good net profits, very little debt, great opportunities for them to either take advantage of maybe a stock split, maybe opportunities for expansion, lots of things that are there for them. I'd really love to actually have an interview with the CEO of Dolphin Cove. I have tried, but unfortunately haven't been able to get an interview as yet. So if you're watching this and you know someone who'd be able to connect me, I'd greatly appreciate it. And then finally, we closed out with hearing from VJ from Blue Power. And so that's our episode for this week. Just a reminder that our sponsor is the L.E.A.R.N Investing in US Markets class. It's going to be a few weeks from today. It's a completely free class. You can register at classes.learngrowinvestclub.com. It is completely free, but of course, you have to register in order to get the link to join the session. And then, of course, we're inviting you to join our community groups. We're on Telegram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So really do hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope to see you each week for a new episode of Market Money. And then, of course, let us know any questions you have about investing, money management, stock market, etc. We'll try to cover that in terms of videos. So thanks again for watching. I hope to see you at the next episode.